Greetings, amigops and top teners everywhere. This is Mike from Top 10 with Kyle and Mike. This week, as every week, I'm joined by our lovely bespectacled co-host, Kyle. Kyle and I are going to be discussing a top 10 topic this week. I actually know what the topic is. I'll let Kyle tell you what it is, but we're going to discuss this topic, we're going to debate it vigorously, and by the end of tonight's episode, somewhere between 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, I don't know, we'll see. We will have a definitive top 10 list. So Kyle, what are we talking about?
All right, Mike, as you said, you know the topic. It is time for our second installment of what is now an annual event. Tonight we are doing and hosting the 2019 Topscars for the year of 2018. Now, for those of you who are not with us last year for this very special event, the Oscars, the Topscars are an event where we honor all of the movies from a given year that were not honored in any way at the actual Oscars ceremonies. So we are going to rank the top 10 movies from 2018 that received 0 Oscar nominations.
So Kyle, does it have to be nominated for one of the major award categories?
I'm glad you asked that, Mike. The answer is no. If a movie is nominated for any Oscar whatsoever, including something relatively minor like sound editing.
Even those Oscars that they're no longer going to be showing during the actual Oscars.
Yeah, even those, which, by the way, I'm not that bothered by it.
Movie people are very bothered by it. Alfonso Cuarón was tweeted out something about how you don't have movies without cinematography, which is a good point.
Listen, if I were involved in the ceremonies in any way whatsoever officially, yeah, I'd be pissed off. As someone that's not going to watch the Oscars, probably, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, that's a reasonable stance to take.
So, some movies that were nominated for Oscars that you might not think of as Oscar-worthy material that won't be making this list. Movies like A Quiet Place, which was nominated for sound editing.
Yeah, that's a great nomination.
Oh yeah, deserved. Movies like Solo, Infinity War, Ready Player One, Christopher Robin, all nominated for effects. Movies like I Love Dogs and Incredibles 2, which are up for Best Animated Picture.
Mm-hmm.
And some relatively popular movies like Black Panther and Black Klansman, that were actually nominated for Best Picture. So none of those movies will appear on this list.
Yep. Movies like Roma, The Favorite, those movies you haven't heard much about, stuff like that, will not be on the list.
Precisely. So, with that being said, and like we did last year, I'm going to do the same thing this year. For each movie, I'm going to give out an award, the Oscar category that I think it had the best chance of actually being nominated for.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give out each of those awards only once.
Yes, I forgot about that feature. I like that a lot. That's actually a really fun feature because it forces you to consider these head-to-head.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the rules. So we can just go on and get started if you're ready.
I think I am ready. I just want to reflect very briefly on this. I think I might be mistaken in saying this, but I think this is our first repeat episode. This is our first time doing the second annual of something. Is that right?
It's certainly the second time we've done an annual podcast. Like, we've done 2 episodes of the If You Liked, or...
Yeah. But this is the first time we've had, this is our, hey, we're coming back around, right? This is our... That feels pretty cool. I'm kind of excited by this. I don't mind taking a second to reflect on the fact that we've been doing this for a little over a year now, and we're getting to the point where we're doing the same thing twice, and not just because we're running out of ideas, only partially because of that.
I think it's fair to take a second and kind of lather up in that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think if you had asked me when we started if we would do this for a year, I would have said yeah. But it is extremely gratifying to find that about a little over a year later, I haven't lost any enthusiasm for it. If anything, I'm maybe more excited about it now that I know what we can do and what we want it to be. So, yeah, congratulations to you, buddy.
Yeah, congrats, bud. I think I look forward to, like you said, what we can do. I think what we've done is good, and I've really enjoyed it, but I think that there's a lot more road to hoe for us. Like, I think there's some good stuff we can do. Especially as we kind of think about the people in our lives. I think that the crowdsourced best albums of 2018 list was a really good reflection on what our friends and network, loosely have to offer. Like, there's a lot of interesting people that we associate with who have a lot of interesting things to say, and I think the two of us have become the two with, the audio platform, but we're not the most interesting by a wide stretch, but we have access to a lot of interesting people who we can kind of present. So that's what I'm really excited about.
Absolutely. I think it'd be appropriate to say that pretty soon here, maybe a month or so, we're going to do our very first episode with a professional who neither of us knows and is going to come on this podcast and teach us something. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I do think that's somewhere we want to go. So if you're listening, Tom Brady or Alex Guerrero, if you want to talk about the TB12 method, we think it's a little bit kooky, but we're happy to listen.
Whoever, yeah. If someone for some reason is listening to this and thinks that they have something to teach our listenership, hit us up.
Yeah, seriously. Top 10 KM.
All right. That was fun. Let's get into this now.
Mm-hmm.
Number 10 is a film that I was almost literally dragged to. So it's around Halloween. Allegis is hanging out with some of her friends from work, and I happen to be in the same neighborhood as they are. And they say, hey, we're going to go impromptu. We're going to go see Halloween, the 2018 remake of Halloween. Tag along.
Yep.
I was like, oh, boy. And as a card-carrying scaredy cat, this was a pretty alarming prospect for me. But we went. We sat in the very front row, which definitely
physical
changed.
Discomfort to go with emotional discomfort.
Yeah. But I found it to be an incredibly, not pleasant experience, but a very worthwhile experience. And I'm very glad that I saw it, and I'm glad that I saw it in those circumstances. I really like this movie.
That is one of the more surprising things I've ever heard on this podcast. But I'm very glad. I think I knew that you had seen this and were kind of generally happy with it. But even so, this is surprising.
I think the biggest things that I liked about it were... So I'd never seen any Halloween movie because I don't watch scary movies.
Yeah.
So the original Halloween came out in like the 80s. And it was Jamie Lee Curtis, very young, early in her career.
Yep.
Survives this encounter with a mass murderer. He goes to prison. And then there are like 8 sequels that get more and more ridiculous. Mm-hmm. What I love about this is that they just said, pretend none of that happened. Let's just have a direct sequel to Halloween that takes place actually like 30 years after the original, just the same distance that the two films are spread apart. Mm-hmm. And it's the story of basically the Michael Myers, the main villain in the first movie, escapes from his high security prison and on Halloween night goes on a second killing spree. And the movie is all about Jamie Lee Curtis, like the trauma that she dealt with coming back and how that's affected her life in the past 30 years and her like strong desire to prevent it from happening again to other people. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really cool idea for a sequel, and I love how they just dismissed 25 years of less inspired sequels.
Yeah.
It ends up kind of adhering to a lot of the horror tropes that you see. It doesn't escape some of the drawbacks of those, but overall, very fun movie to see around Halloween.
I dig that. 2 questions. One is less important than the other. So the less important question is, which Oscar is this being nominated for? Or which Topscar, excuse me. And the more important question is, do you see Jamie Lee Curtis's boobs again? Because that was a pretty monumental moment in film history, was seeing them the first time around.
Yeah, so the Topscar for Best Actress goes to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Wonderful. This is great. It's because she took her top off, isn't it?
She does not take her top off.
That's a massive disappointment. I will not be seeing this film.
I had seen enough of her boobs in Christmas with the Cranks, so I was like, I was good on Jamie Lee Curtis for a while.
This is the second time Jamie Lee Curtis's nudity has come up on this podcast, I think.
In the last like couple of months, which is wild. But she really sells it as this person that has spent a long time living in fear and kind of coming, like, she plays the really kooky, like, crazy grandma really well. And then at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, she kicks some serious ass, and she's like a real, like, movie badass. She's awesome.
So does she kill Michael Myers in the end?
Unclear. She, I don't want to spoil it, but it's ambiguous. It seems like a situation that should kill a man, but...
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You know what else should kill a man is constipation, but luckily Jamie Lee Curtis has her Activia, so who's to say, really? At this stage in her career, nothing can stop her.
She can defeat anything.
Yeah.
Serial killers, constipation, whatever.
Yeah, anything.
All right, number 9. Another horror film, surprisingly. Not that scary, but a horror film nonetheless. Number 9, mostly on the merits of its status as like a 2-week phenomenon, is Bird Box.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this kind of is a... What's the deal with this, because it didn't have a theatrical release?
It's a theatrically length film, and I think based on the year that Netflix had, we can consider their movies... I mean, they were nominated for actual Oscars, one of them for Best Picture. I see no reason that a Netflix film starring... what's his name? Sandra
John
Bullock
Malkovich.
And John Malkovich. Like, with that kind of talent in your movie, like, this is a real movie, so we're going to consider it.
All right, fair enough.
It is a very classic horror film in that you start with a large group of people, and by the end of it, there's only one person left, and it's the minorities that go first.
Of course. It's a staple of the genre.
It's also extremely derivative of A Quiet Place, although I read that I think this book was written before A Quiet Place came out.
Sort of like a Wyatt Earp Tombstone, Mr. Skin / Flesh of the Stars situation.
Precisely. That's the correct analogy for this.
Yeah.
But Allegius and I had heard the hype. We threw it on Netflix. It was a really fun experience to just like decide to watch it and throw it on Netflix and get out of there in 90 minutes and just have a good time. It was, for all of its faults, it was a fun experience. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad you were able to engage with the culture too.
Yeah, it was fun to be like able to go into work and engage in the water cooler talk. Like, oh, Bird Box. I'm like, I saw Bird Box. I have thoughts. Yeah, that was good. You haven't seen this one yet either, right?
I have not. I've enjoyed the memes with like Turd Box and like a cat in a kitty litter box, but I have not actually seen the film.
I would say it's a good one to watch if you're... we did this last year. We should do it again. Go back for this one if... Go back to Bird Box if you have like 90 minutes to spare, because it's not going to require a lot of thought, and it's immediately accessible in your home. That's
a pretty good sales pitch.
I think that's the whole point of it, and it succeeds there. So,
all right, I dig it. What are we awarding it?
I'm giving that one best sound mixing, and I had to look this up today. So the difference between sound editing and sound mixing is a little counterintuitive. Sound editing is the award given to the production crew that is able to create... Basically, sound editing is the process of like putting together all the sounds that you're going to use in a movie, like sound effects, noises, whatever it is, atmospheric noise, however you produce those sounds. And then mixing is the process of like integrating those into the fabric of your movie. So while none of this...
Interesting.
Yeah, so while none of this... There were some cool, like, neat sounds. It was like, how'd they do that with some of, like, the monster noises? But really, what stood out in this movie is how they were able to use sound as kind of a weapon and a way to create atmosphere when there's a decent chunk of the movie where our main characters can't see. And so to put ourselves in their shoes, the sound was very important. So this is kind of a no-brainer.
Does the screen ever go black, like you're looking through the blindfold kind of thing?
Not entirely black, but oftentimes you'll be seeing as if you have a blindfold on, not for like prolonged stretches, but And a lot of the movie takes place with her and her kids on a boat, and they'll like put this big blanket over them, and so like they're listening to what's happening outside of the blanket, and you're getting the same experience as they are. So it's pretty cool.
Cool. I dig it.
Yeah. Number 7. This is one oh sorry, number 8. This is one that I know that you enjoyed quite a bit. I think when we saw it, we said to each other, this will probably be on next year's Topscars list. Number 8 is a little film called Game Night.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning, I was aware that this was tonight's episode we were going to be recording, but I didn't put together my own list. But about 10 minutes before we came on, I just took a look through this year's top box office just so I could remember some of the movies from this year. And I was thinking about it. Game Night was for me the funniest movie of the year. Like, that was the actual comedy that I laughed at the most in 2018. I thought I guess it can't be best. She can't be best actress. Maybe she could be best supporting. But I thought Rachel McAdams was so funny in this movie. The whole scene about Jason Bateman getting shot was just fantastic. Then, I mean, Jesse Plemons was incredible in this movie. Like, this was just
MVP.
Yeah, Jesse Plemons is probably the MVP of this movie. But man, oh man, this was a good one.
Now that you say that, I feel like I've given it the wrong Topscar. I feel like I should have given Jesse Plemons best supporting. But I will say that, like, there's an incredible roster in this movie, especially of supporting characters.
Winnie the Bish is in it.
I started watching New Girl after I saw this, and so I wish I had seen this after I had started watching New Girl, because I think it would have been more enjoyable for that reason.
Yeah.
But Kyle Chandler is in this movie, like,
yep,
one of my all-time favorites.
Insane.
Yes. Jeffrey Wright is in this, aka Felix Leiter, and
Dr.
Bernard from Westworld. So, like, and then Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams. Like, this is a heavy hitter of a film, and it's really funny.
Yeah. It's really interesting that it feels like there's not a lot of conventional comedies out there. Like, there's just not a ton of big budget, or I guess not big budget, like big release, big box office, R-rated funny comedies, and this was one of the very few, and they did a great job. That was a fun cast.
Yeah, I agree. And this is starting to feel weird. I gave it a very strange Topscar. Do you remember, like, in transition scenes and at the beginning of the movie, they would show, like, overhead views of, like, the neighborhood or, like, the bridge that they were on, and they would move, like, cars around and people around like it was the game of life, and they looked like tokens, like, on a game board?
Yeah. I
was so tickled by that animation. Like, I just thought it was a really cool creative choice. So I gave Game Night the Topscar for best visual effects. Like, I thought,
I actually don't think it's a dumb award to give it. I thought that really added to it. Like, this really was a movie that brought you legitimate comedy in some slightly unconventional packaging. Like, it was a very traditional comedy, but the packaging was a little different. And I think that this was something that made it really fun and a little bit different. So I'm actually not anti. I think that the wealth gets spread a little bit too much, maybe for a particular acting Topscar, because there's too many different people who are really funny. I want to say it was Lucy Lawless, the British woman. Maybe I think I might be screwing that up. But the woman who I'm now totally screwing this up. She either has an Irish accent or an English accent, and I'm really forgetting. But she was really funny, whoever that was. Like,
she was the one that was like the operator of the game that, like, was. They needed to go to her office to get it sorted out, or who was she in the movie?
I now have no clue.
Yeah.
I remember her being really funny, though. The problem is too many people in this movie were funny to really pick one out. So I like giving this one to the visual effects folks.
Yeah, maybe if this was the BAFTAs, we could give it Best Ensemble or something.
Yeah, that's probably what it would warrant.
Yeah. So go back to Game Night if you're in the mood for something light, something funny, something with a lot of people that you recognize, and something with a fun payoff at the end. I'd recommend this one.
Absolutely.
All right. That was number 8, which means it's time for the Not Top 3 segment. When should I get started on that?
I'm not really sure. I don't know. It feels like now is probably a decent time, but I don't know. How are you going to know when to start?
That's, I guess, if only we had some not top 3 music.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. That was just awesome. That's actually one of my favorite additions you've done so far.
Yeah, for sure. He was bringing it tonight. He knows it's a big stage.
Absolutely bringing it.
Okay. There were a lot of bad movies I saw this year. But I managed to find the worst 3. Number 3 was a film called Venom.
Hey! What the hell? Jeez!
Yeah, I didn't love Venom. Sorry,
Let me say this. I think if you give this the top score that I think you're going to give it, then I fully support. I don't support like a not top score for the film as a whole, but I do support it for one particular aspect of the film. Continue.
I actually didn't award any of my not tops a top score. What would you have given Venom?
Oh, this is unquestionably... Well, see, now this I guess depends on how we divide the blame. It had the worst villain I've ever seen in a movie, so it's... And I actually don't say that hyperbolically. That was the worst villain I've ever seen in a movie. I have a hard time blaming Riz Ahmed because he's so good, so maybe it's the writing. Probably I'd give this worst original screenplay or worst adapted. I don't know what comic book movies go into, so probably adapted.
Yeah.
But holy Jesus, that was awful.
Yeah, let's do that. Worst adapted screenplay. My biggest problem with this movie was absolutely the writing. Listen, I love superhero movies. I love them. I don't
And
care
you're very forgiving of them.
Yeah, I fucking loved Age of Ultron. Like, it doesn't take that much for me to be into it. This movie had so many plot holes that it actually pulled me out of it. Like,
yeah.
Like, I remember this one scene was so jarring I actually laughed. Like, right after he gets the first, like, big scene with the symbiote, which, by the way, in the trailers, they called it a symbiote, and then they changed it in the movie to get it right. Like, they didn't look up how to pronounce symbiote before they made the trailer for this movie, before they filmed the damn movie.
If you were to build the actual characters in the film, the symbiote is the second build character, right? Like, it'll be Eddie Brock and then the symbiote.
Yep. Yeah. So, no big deal. That would be like if you called him Edie Brock.
Yeah, that'd be tough. It's like a 30s film star, Edie Brock.
So, immediately after their first big scene, the symbiote tells Eddie, he's like, "Bitch, you're along for the ride." And then scene, cut. And then the very next scene, the two of them are going to Eddie's place of work so that Eddie can get, like, a message or something that's on his computer. Like, immediately after the symbiote told him, like, "I don't give a shit about what you want," he's like, "Actually, that's cool. Can we make us detour at my place of work?" And the symbiote's like, "That's cool. I'll even help you do it." Like, what is this? And then that's just the most glaring example. There are a lot of them. And so, while I enjoyed this movie, I really did, because I was laughing at it, and I think it was laughing at itself a little bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't save it. This is a bad movie, regardless of how much it grossed and how much people ended up kind of ironically loving it.
Yes, it was a bad movie, but it was a very bad script. And I think we can both agree on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Number 2 in my not top 3 was Tag. Oh, wait. Venom should also get the not top score for worst wig. Did you stick around for the post-credit scene?
Yes.
Woody Harrelson with that horrible red wig.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Worst wig.
That was tough. I forgot about that.
Awful.
Mm-hmm.
Our second movie was another comedy called Tag, which I was really excited about because of the cast. Like, I'm in on Renner, I'm in on the Hamaconda, I'm in on Jake Johnson, and Hannibal Buress. Like, sign me up. Jameson and I saw the trailer. We were like, we are going to love this. We went and saw it together. I think Jameson really liked it.
Well.
But I did not. Mostly because, I mean, you could have told me this from the trailer. I could have told you this in the trailer. They kind of used their bullets there. And there's one joke in particular that they do about halfway through the movie that is really aggressively not funny. And actually,
I remember you telling me, like, there was one thing that they said that just totally just ruined what could have been a passable movie for you.
it came to like a skidding halt. Like, that was both not funny and like really offensive. And it would have been fine if that had been it, but they were like, let's double down on this and this will be our thing. And they really should not have done that, and it really tainted the last like 3/5 of the movie for me. So bummer for that. Didn't love Tag.
I have a question for you, because this actually might contribute to the Topscar or not Topscar that's awarded to this film. Have you read the article? I'm assuming it was on The Ringer, like most of our articles of interest, breaking down frame by frame when Jeremy Renner's arms were broken in this movie.
No.
So this is great. Maybe his arm, whatever. I assume it wasn't both of his arms. But he broke an arm filming some other movie. And so when you look at the trailer, you can see sometimes he literally has 3 arms because they did such a poor job of editing his arm out. And the irony of this is that it's in a movie about tag, in which tagging somebody is very important. Now, my understanding is he's never it, so maybe it's not as important for him. But even so, it's very physically challenging, physically demanding, and he did it with a broken arm or wrist or something. And there are some glaringly obvious times where he has like one mega hand because they did such a poor job. It's definitely worth a read. So I think, even though I didn't see this, I'm willing to award this worst visual effects.
I didn't notice that in the movie, but I'm also willing to give the not Topscar to Tag for worst visual effects.
Okay.
All right. The worst movie I saw last year was Pacific Rim Uprising.
And the worst movie you're going to see next year is, spin off of that one.
Probably.
It'd be a home movie.
Ugh.
Ugh. Gross.
Sorry, folks. That's a Pacific Rim job joke. All right. So, a lot of things wrong with this movie, but the biggest one is that these movies are just made for overseas audience. So, the big markets in China and other Pacific Rim countries, shockingly. And we saw this recently with Batman Ninja.
Yeah. That
market really, really likes big robots, and the dialogue just needs to be extremely shouty and doesn't really need to make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
That's all this movie is. It was like Batman Ninja, but just strictly giant robots and just a lot of yelling at each other and robots smashing into things for close to 2 hours, which I'm not above that kind of thing in general, but I really hated this one. And it's always bad when you're in a movie and you're wondering when it will be over.
That's almost never happened to me. That's brutal when that does happen. Most important question, was John Boyega in this one?
He was, and he was fine.
Yeah.
He was overshadowed by some really bad stuff from Charlie Day.
Charlie Day is so good on Always Sunny. And that's about as far as I'm willing to go.
Yeah. He was really bad in this movie.
He's found the perfect character for himself in Always Sunny, and that's about it.
The problem is I think that's his character in this movie, too. And he doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So, those are the 3 worst movies I saw this year. Did you
what was the not Topscar for Pacific Rim?
I don't know. I guess I would give it... I'll give it to Charlie Day for worst supporting actor.
Oh, okay. I like that. That seems like a good one.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any that I want to call out specifically. I kind of like I don't see that movies that are that bad because I didn't have Movie Pass this year.
That's why I saw. So without Movie Pass, I definitely would not have seen Pacific Rim or Tag. I still would have seen Venom probably.
Yeah. Venom will hold a special place in my heart because that was the first movie I think I've ever actually seen alone. And it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. Caroline ditched me big time.
Wow.
And I had a really nice time. It was great. I think I told you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I told you that I like got to my seat and it was taken, and I asked somebody to switch, and it ended up like a whole like a row of 7 people had to move because of me, and it was a tough
Nice.
first lonesome movie experience at first, and then it was great.
I gotta say, I'm a fan of it. I did it a lot this year because I had Movie Pass. I saw none of these movies by myself, but I saw a lot, and I gotta say, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would.
No, it's nice.
Yeah. So, some honorable mentions, some bad movies that weren't the worst I saw this year. I really did not like Jurassic World all that much.
That was horrific, but it's nominated for an Oscar, I think, right?
Is it really?
Oh no, never mind. Never mind. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah,
In
that
which
was
case-
that was horrific.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. Tomb Raider.
I didn't see that one, but it didn't get great reviews.
Ugh, I saw that one by myself, and it started off very promising. There's this cool
Yeah.
scene where she's into biking, and they put a can of paint on her back like seat, and then they like poke a hole in it, and then a bunch of other dudes on bikes chase her, and like they can follow the paint trail. And the game is like if she can evade capture, then she wins. So like basically she has to go long enough that all the paint comes out of the can. And it's in London. It's like a really cool chase scene. And I was like, damn, this is gonna be awesome. And then
That
the
is
rest of
cool.
the rest of the movie was just shit.
And that was Alicia Vikander, right?
Yeah.
Tough to waste her because she's fantastic.
I wouldn't say she was wasted, but like she was good, but
Yeah.
not a great movie overall. The Equalizer 2 was really disappointing, especially for my dad. I thought he was
I'll
gonna
say, has
cry.
your dad seen it yet?
My dad and I saw it together. It was actually me, my dad, my uncle Chuck, and my cousin Adam. We all saw it. And my dad was close
This is
to
the greatest
tears.
thing I've ever heard.
I know. It was great. We went home for Allegius's wedding shower, and while the girls and the ladies were doing that, I called my dad up. I was like, let's go see Equalizer 2. So we did that. It was great.
Wow. I really love that.
Disappointing film, but what's his name? The Viper from Game of Thrones.
Oh, God. Him. Yeah. I can't think of his name right now.
Extremely compelling villain, but overall pretty disappointing. So that rounds out the bad movies I saw this year. We can get back to the good stuff.
Okay. I'm going to try to find his name quickly. It's taking a
Pascal?
second. Yeah, Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, he was good.
Yep.
He was really good, and Denzel, of course, is incredible.
Of course. The great Denzel Washington. Do you know I know him?
Really?
Boys and Girls Club of Washington, D.C.
Wow, you're a hero.
Yeah, thought so.
Okay. Number 7 is a little film called Unsane. I can't believe it. Another horror film.
Another one that I didn't see.
This is
This
really
is
more
Steven
of
Soderbergh, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize it was him until after I saw it, and I had always associated him with the Oceans and Logan Lucky, so I was kind of confused by this. And this is really more of a thriller than a horror movie. But
Yep.
the basic premise is that this girl has she had a stalker, and there's some lingering effects of that. So she checks herself into like a place to get some mental help, like a therapy session. Through some series of circumstances, she ends up having to stay there for a few nights, and then her stalker, she starts seeing her stalker around in the hospital, and so the whole movie is kind of questioning like the nature of sanity and like whether or not she's going crazy. I'm not going to spoil anything because it's worth watching, but it's an intimate, kind of tight thriller, and it's really nerve-wracking. Allegius wanted to see it, so we went and saw it, and I'm glad we did. The Topscar for this one goes for best cinematography because Steven Soderbergh shot this thing on an iPhone.
He's really kind of crazy. If you look at his filmography, it's a pretty wild collection of movies that are all very different from each other.
Yes.
He's awesome. That's really cool. I had heard that was what they did. This is on my list. I gotta really see this one because I love every Steven Soderbergh film I've ever seen, and one where he's kind of playing in the sandbox like this seems kind of fun.
Be warned, because it is scary and it's definitely upsetting.
Yeah.
At times, but overall a worthwhile experience, and definitely probably more fun to watch with the context that it was filmed on an iPhone.
Yeah.
That was really cool, and this is the first time I'd actually seen Claire Foy, which I was very impressed by her in this movie.
Yeah, she was wonderful in a film that I think was nominated for. Yeah, it was unfortunately nominated for an actual Oscar, but she was incredible in First Man.
Yes, she was
Incredible. I also heard that this film contains an excellent guest appearance from Dr. Mann.
Yes, it does. I love his new role as just the king of cameos.
Yeah.
Oh, just and I like literally stopped and like looked at each other in the middle of this movie. We're like, what is? By the way, this is Matt Damon we're talking about. Like, what is Matt Damon doing here as Matt Damon? He doesn't appear as himself, but he may as well be. Like, it's real. He's in it for 2 minutes. So
yeah, he's become a real elder statesman of Hollywood in a way that's very amusing.
Never forget that he was also in Ragnarok for 10 seconds.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
I love it. So yeah, go back for Unsane if you're okay with being a little bit unsettled. If you like horror films and you like to be a little perturbed, this is the perfect film for you. And if you're a fan of experimental film, like you won't even notice that it was shot on an iPhone unless you're looking for it. Like the aspect ratio is off, but you get used to it in like 2 seconds. But like it feels like a real movie, which is I think what's so cool about it is he's kind of flexing like, and he talked about this on a podcast I listened to him with recently where he was saying like with an iPhone you can shoot. He basically proved like anyone can shoot a professional looking movie, which is such a exciting thing.
Yeah.
So that was number 7. Number 6 is a film called Mid-90s, written and directed by Jonah Hill.
This is playing so far like a list of movies that I really wanted to see and didn't. Because Mid-90s is another one I really wanted to see.
I would say you should go back for this one. I was kind of surprised to find it this low on the list because I really liked it. I saw it with my sister Erin. I think that it does have greater significance and plays better to a demographic that did grow up in this period. And I don't include myself in that. I think it's probably best for people that are a few years older than we are, that were nearing adulthood in the 90s. But it's basically about this kid that has some difficulties at home that kind of finds a friend group of skateboarders that he ends up fitting in really well with. And it's just like a very heartfelt kind of homage to that time period and a very focused character study on like a group of really, really, really charming kids. And that's really the highlight of the movie is like these 4 or 5 kids that are just knock it out of the park. Like, every one of them is incredibly likable, even though they're just skateboarding punks. And you can tell the movie was crafted with a lot of love because like there's like panning shots of things that were in the 90s, like CDs, like rap CDs and like basketball jerseys and skateboards and like this whole culture that is really paid a lot of respect. I really, and there's some other great actors. I don't remember his name, but he showed up in a lot of stuff recently. He was the brother in 3 Billboards.
Lucas Hedges. He's like the king of Oscar bait roles. He's
amazing.
He's an incredible actor. I mean, did you see Manchester by the Sea?
I did not.
Yeah, you should. That's one to go back for. Manchester by the Sea was just an incredible film, but Lucas Hedges just blew me away in that movie. I thought he held up next to Casey Affleck so well that like I'm just so in on him, and that's one of the big reasons I'm disappointed I haven't seen this film yet is that I saw him in the trailer and it looked like he was going to flex his muscles a little bit as an actor.
He sure does. And the Topscar for this movie is going to a supporting actor, but it's not Lucas Hedges.
Dig it. Okay.
It's going to a young man by the name of Nakel Smith, who played a character named Ray. Ray is basically like the ringleader of this group of skateboarders, and it's really cool because they all have nicknames. One of them, this really charming kid in the movie, his nickname is Fuck Shit.
Okay.
Pete or Stevie, the kid, goes, "Why do they call him Fuck Shit?" And the other guy goes, because he always says that. He goes, "Oh fuck, shit, that was dope." And then it immediately cuts to him like a little further away from them, looking at another kid doing a trick, and he goes, "Oh fuck, shit, that was dope."
That's great.
So they all have nicknames except for Ray. Like that's just his name. Like he goes by Ray. He's the leader, and he's really serious about his skateboarding career, and that's one of the big overarching themes of the movie, or through lines of the movie, is like his pursuit of legitimacy in skateboarding. He's just a really inspiring character and played to perfection by this young, I think, emerging actor. Whenever he's on screen, you just have like you can't not give it 100% focus, and it's so compelling. So I'm looking forward to seeing more from this guy.
Awesome. I dig that. It's always cool when you get that feeling.
Now, I just made this movie sound like really serious and kind of brooding, but it's also one of the funniest movies I saw this year. Like, it wouldn't be a stretch to classify this as a comedy. It was laugh out loud funny at times. So I'd say anyone really would enjoy this movie. All right, number 5 is another kind of indie movie that I don't know if I would have seen without Movie Pass. I saw this one with Aaron. Mm-hmm. This one is called The Old Man and the Gun.
So I put this on when I did a little brief study before on a list of movies I wanted to make sure you mentioned, because I haven't seen it, but you talked about this in such glowing terms earlier in the year.
The only reason it's this low is because of its exposure, and because the 4 above it are as great as they are. But so the movie stars Robert Redford and also has Casey Affleck in it. So Robert Redford and Danny Glover is also in it too.
Give me more Danny Glover.
I know. So Robert Redford's character is a bank robber, and he just goes into banks and he says, he'll go up to the teller and he'll say, "Hello, beautiful." He always picks a young woman. He says, "Hello, gorgeous. This is a bank robbery." And he has a gun in his jacket, and he says, "Oh, don't fret. Just put the money in the bag. It's insured. I'll take it. I'll be on my way." And the whole movie is based upon the notion that this guy is so charming and so pleasant and so kind that he can get away with this kind of thing, and people are almost happy to give him the money. Like, Casey Affleck is the detective investigating, and everyone he interviews is saying he was just the nicest old man. And like it's a real testament to Robert Redford's acting ability that you believe that this guy could just walk into a bank and do that.
Yeah.
And then so he is in a relationship with this woman, and he's robbing banks at the same time, and it's all about his history and why he feels like he has to do this. And then Casey Affleck is trying to solve the case, and it's not that long, and there's not that much to it other than highlighting a couple of really, really talented actors. And so the Topscar for this one is Best Actor for Robert Redford. I'm actually kind of surprised he wasn't legitimately nominated. Without Robert, we talked about this with Christian Bale. Without Robert Redford in this movie or someone else doing this role, this is probably a C+ movie based on plot alone. But with him in it and Casey Affleck too, those two, this was an borderline A+ movie. Like, I was shocked by how much I loved it.
I'm also very surprised that this wasn't nominated for an actual Best Actor Oscar, because I wouldn't really classify this as a crazy strong year, and I believe Robert Redford has said this is going to be his last ever acting role. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me that he wasn't nominated for this. I mean, I'm sure he'll get a Lifetime Achievement Award before too long if he hasn't gotten one already, but why not? Like, I don't know, Viggo Mortensen, really? Like, Willem Dafoe? I don't know.
It's weird because the Oscars do this all the time. They give somebody kind of a makeup award. But this wouldn't have been a makeup award. Like, he's extremely deserving. Like, he made this movie, and he was amazing. I just believed he was this guy. And what's also neat is that, like, this character in some ways mirrors Robert Redford. Like, this is a guy who's, So, go back to this movie if you like Robert Redford, which
Yep. Everybody does.
and it's not really a mystery movie. It's not like a whodunit. It's just like a really cool character study that's carried by its actors, and
Yeah.
I can't speak more highly of it. I loved it.
Beautiful.
All right, we're changing pace. We're changing gears a little bit for number 4. Number 4 was a film called Sorry to Bother You. Did you end up catching this one?
No.
I did not mean to pick exclusively movies that you didn't see, Mike.
Yeah, so far I've seen one of these movies.
Don't worry. I know you've seen 2 of the top 3.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I know what 2 of the
yeah.
I definitely know what 2 of the top 3 are.
Yeah. So, Sorry to Bother You. It's just I don't even know how you describe it. It's this guy who takes a job as a telephone screener, like or a telephone salesman, and it's it's just a movie about race relations and race power. And I really just can't get into it too much further than that without giving stuff away and ruining the experience, I guess.
But isn't the basic premise that this is a black guy who has a great white voice? Basically, he starts rising by using a fake white voice, and that sort of grants him power. And then he gets behind the scenes of how power works.
Yes. So there's a scene early in the movie where Danny Glover is the salesman right next to him. Mm-hmm. And he tells him, if you want to sell, you got to use your white voice. He's like, what are you talking about? And what's cool is that it's David Cross. Like, David Cross does all of his, like, white person lines.
No, he doesn't.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Hello, ma'am. Could I interest you in some whatever it is? And so it plays for laughs, and it's actually a funny movie, but it goes some places that you do not expect. It is a wild ride, and a movie you definitely need to experience for yourself. It's definitely not for everybody, but I really liked it, and I think a good comp for it is Get Out. Like, if you liked Get Out, you probably like this movie. So
this is gonna be my Get Out of this year, where I don't watch it like to the point that's like ridiculous, and then see it and absolutely love it.
That is exactly how this is gonna go.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for this one and thinking, man, that looks incredible. Also, it looks awful. And I was very pleasantly surprised when the reviews came in and it was getting praise to the skies.
Yep, deserved for sure. Armie Hammer is also in it.
I heard great things about his performance.
It's wild. I wish we got more of Armie Hammer.
Yeah, you still haven't seen Call Me by Your Name, right?
I did see Call Me by Your Name.
You did see it.
Yep.
Yeah, he was incredible in that movie.
That was the first thing I'd seen him in since he was the Winklevi, and I was stunned. I was like, "Whoa, this guy's incredible!"
Yeah.
So, he was actually supposed to be Batman in George Miller's Justice League.
Yeah, I would be okay with him as Batman, especially as he gets older and seemingly wiser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this movie gets the Topscar for Best Original Screenplay. Mm-hmm. It's a very cleverly and intentionally written movie. So
cool. I dig that.
All right, that brings us to our honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to rattle off, because we're getting kind of long here. I'm just going to rattle off a bunch of movies that I saw that I don't think were among the 10 best I saw this year, but that I enjoyed and I think in general are worth going back for if you did not see them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really into the Purge series, but my sister-in-law Talia and my mother-in-law are very into the films, and we watched the first Purge when I was there for the holidays, and I gotta say I really liked it. This is a year of horror for me. I'm surprised at how much I liked all these horror films.
This is a very odd list for you.
It is. It's very not my speed, but I like this movie a lot. There's kind of some groupthink maybe. Like, it was just a fun group movie. Like, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. For all of its problems, overall a movie that I did enjoy. Mm-hmm. You can hear more about that on our Fantastic Beasts pod.
Yes, one of the few disagreements in the pod's history.
Yeah. Okay, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Solid, if not spectacular, addition to the MCU.
It's a good description. It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. Deadpool 2, funny, not as awesome as the first.
Yes, naturally, but better than I expected.
Yeah, true. Ocean's 8, kind of a fun dip back into that universe, but definitely lacked some of the magic of the originals. Mm-hmm. Wow, kind of a theme here. Sicario 2, Day of Soldado.
Yeah, so I don't want this to be in the honorable mentions because this was one of the best movies I saw all year, and I will argue passionately for it a little bit later.
Okay, then we'll do that. Hotel Artemis, really fun cast. I think they decided to get a bunch of people, and then we're like, now what?
Yeah,
it was good. It was fine. I really mostly just enjoyed Dave Bautista
as one does.
And Sterling K. Brown.
Sterling K. Brown. God, I love Sterling K. Brown so much. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was the OJ show, and he was a revelation and has just only gotten better. He was incredible in like 5 minutes of Black Panther. Like, incredible. One of the best things about that movie.
Yep, and he was definitely the highlight of this movie, for sure.
Yeah.
Rampage? I was shocked to find that I enjoyed Rampage.
Jameson loved it, I'm sure.
We both loved it. We were all over it. It was I don't remember her name. Naomi, the Moneypenny from the Bond movies.
Yeah. Not Naomi Campbell, right?
Something like that.
No, not Naomi Watts. There's like 3 Naomis. Naomi Campbell, Naomi Watts, and Naomi Harris.
Naomi Harris.
She's Naomi Harris. That's her.
Yep. It's her and The Rock and what's the one from The Office? The one that looks like Jim.
Plop?
Yeah, Plop. Plop. So
he's Plop. The other one's Clark.
Yeah, Plop. The one thing about this movie is they completely flip on their stance on animal rights. Like the first like 3/4 of the movie are like, we have to save these animals. These animals have feelings and souls. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, just kill them. So, but it was a fun like 2 hours. And then The Commuter, which is just taken on a train. Mm-hmm. But which Legis and I watched this on the plane back from our honeymoon, and it's the perfect airplane movie.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah. So there is that. Now we're into our top 3.
Yep.
Here's one that I know you did see, Mike.
Yes.
Number 3 was a film by the name of Annihilation.
Yeah, so this needed to be very high on the list, and I think I know what the top score is going to be. Can I guess what it's going to be?
Yeah, well, why don't you just you haven't had much of a chance to describe very many movies. Why don't you go through this one?
Yeah, so Annihilation, basically this woman, played by Natalie Portman, in one of her... what is this year? This was an even year, so she was good this year.
Yeah.
Next year, she'll be bad again. But she was really good this year. So she plays a doctor. She's a medical professor, I think. And her husband is played by Oscar Isaac, and he's a special forces commando who comes back from a mission, and things are not quite right with him. She ends up getting pulled into a mission to where he was last deployed, and basically it's this weird zone where everything is just really warped and screwed up.
Area X.
Yeah, Area X. Everything is warped and screwed up, and so she goes with this platoon, and things just go very wrong, and souls are examined, meanings of life are considered, horrible screeching noises are made. It's a very deeply disturbing film from the guy who did Ex Machina.
Yes.
But it is a stunningly beautiful movie. Really weird and funky, and man, oh man, it's one of those movies that's hard to describe what exactly happens, but the feeling you get that whole movie is so distinctive. I won't forget what I felt, and I will never, ever, ever forget the discomfort that our dear friend Alex was feeling while he was watching this movie, because I was sitting next to him, and this is not a horror movie. It has some horror elements, but it's just a kind of action-y movie with, a little more provocative themes. But I remember at the end of this movie, there's something happens that is literally indescribable. Literally indescribable. You cannot describe it, and you especially can't clarify why it's so disturbing unless you've seen it.
I actually tried to explain this scene to a coworker who said he wasn't going to see it, and I tried to explain what about it was so upsetting, and you were right, it was impossible. I just could not convey it, which I don't know why I
cannot convey it. It's like, oh, so somebody gets punched in the face now. Oh, so somebody jumps out and scares you now. Oh, so some existential question is considered now.
You have to see it.
This own little category of thing happens, and the look on Alex's face, he was so uncomfortable watching this movie, and I've never seen somebody be that uncomfortable in a movie, and I felt it. It's a great movie.
I think that this one is gonna stand the test of time. Like, this is a movie I'm gonna have to revisit.
Yes, when I'm ready.
Yeah, but like, it's just a beautiful movie. Like, first of all, the effects are amazing, but aside,
and unique.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very incredible. Really, really good art direction. Which I will say, having read the book, there are a lot of changes that are from the book, but they're almost all good changes for a movie. And the way that they were able to translate the feeling from the book into a film was amazing and deserves a lot of praise. Some of the changes from the book to the movie weren't as good.
You're a little tough.
It got whitewashed a little bit, but
yeah, give him the aloha treatment.
Yeah, but I would recommend the book. Actually, it's very quick. But I would recommend the movie to anybody that likes science fiction.
Being disturbed.
You have to be okay with being a little disturbed. It's I don't even know how to. I guess it's definitely science fiction, but it's not like a thriller or like a horror film. It's kind of in its own niche.
No, it's kind of back to the roots of science fiction, which is science fiction / fantasy, which is to take some element of the world as it is and tweak it slightly to make you question some fundamental thing about our world. I actually think if people saw the movie Arrival and liked it, this is a really good comp for that. It's a movie that's just a little bit different than our world that we live in, and it asks you a lot of questions about the world we really do live in.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess the Topscar?
Yeah, I gotta think it's sound editing, because maybe it's something else, but that sound that we don't have to get into it because it's been done better on a podcast we both listen to. But there's a musical arrangement that's very upsetting to listen to. One of the many ways this movie disturbs you, but overall the sound editing in this movie was just top notch.
Close. I gave it to best original score because that particular set of notes, which is intentionally discordant to upset you, appears heavily in the soundtrack towards the end. But what's neat about this movie is that it's equal parts, the score I listened to it the other day is equal parts like eerie and science fiction-y and kind of like warbly and unsettling and kind of cacophonic and foreboding, all those things. But also, this movie is very kind of ponderous and like thinks a lot, and like the characters actually spend a lot of time just thinking about things. And there's a significant portion of the soundtrack that is like acoustic guitar, like very kind of rustic, like slow guitar music, and it like really sets the tone of like this contemplative, like cerebral kind of movie that at the same time is thrilling and kind of like an adventure kind of type deal. So the fact that it was able to do both of those things in the same soundtrack very effectively was very impressive. So I gave it to best original score.
I like that. I think that's very fitting.
Yeah. Number 2. Sorry, Mike, you did not see this one either, I don't think.
I know what this one is going to be, though, because there's one movie you haven't mentioned that you praised ridiculously.
Number 2 is The Sisters Brothers.
Yeah.
Starring John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix. And also starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Riz Ahmed. So it's an all-star team, another all-star team. This is the story of these two brothers whose last name happens to be Sisters, the Sisters Brothers. They are bounty hunters / enforcers, the frontier times out west in the States. They kind of just take odd jobs and are muscle. And it's just kind of a story about them getting on and doing what they do and what their lives are like, and them being brothers and how their lives have gotten to them to this point. And it's like, there's not like it's not really a plot driven movie. It starts at like this point, it ends at another point, and there's just a lot of stuff that happens in the middle. But it's beautifully shot, and just it reminds you that like these two guys are two of the best like classical actors that we have. They are amazing. I could watch John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix do this. Could have been a 7-hour movie. I don't know if I would have gotten tired of it. Like, yeah, it was really an incredible film.
Yeah, John C. So I think we've talked about this a little bit. I saw the book like 4 years ago and was just so struck by the cover that I really, really wanted to read it. And it's just been floating at the back of my list. And knowing that this came out is going to be motivation for me to read the book and then watch the movie. So I'm going to be delayed in watching this film because I want to read it first. But man, I will watch anything other maybe than the Sherlock Holmes movie that was panned so ridiculously that John C. Reilly is in. I think he's a lesser version of Philip Seymour Hoffman, but he is just an all-star in comedy, in drama. He just has an incredible sort of honesty to him. Like, he just feels very real in everything he does. And my dad has pointed this out because my dad is a huge John C. Reilly guy. He is able to keep a straight face doing, and I do think that goes a long way towards serious acting too, when saying something silly like almost no other actor I've ever seen. Like, he has this scene in this movie that nobody's ever seen except for my dad, Nate, and me, called him, was it Employee of the Month or something? But it's not the one with Dane Cook. I think it's the same title. Or The Promotion. I'm sorry, it's called The Promotion. He's competing with Sean William Scott for a promotion, and he gets in trouble for giving out a best cutting the cheese award at the deli at the supermarket where he works. And he's like facing the bosses, and he's trying to claim that cutting the cheese is not a phrase in Canada. And he says, in Canada, we say cracking the cheese. And he says it with such a straight face. My dad must say cracking it once a week. All of which is to say, I will be seeing this film as soon as I can because you have praised it so completely and because John C. Reilly is a genius.
I can't imagine too many movies that are more up your alley. I think that you are going to really take to this one. And I truly believe this picture should have been nominated for Best Picture. So that's the top score I'm giving.
Best Picture?
Yeah.
Okay. I dig that. I know for certain what number one is.
Yep. And it seems kind of strange for me to put a movie above the movie that I just awarded Best Picture to. Mm-hmm. And yet that's exactly what's going to happen. Mike, tell the people all about my favorite, I think one of probably your favorite or close to it, favorite movies of this year.
Yeah, so Mission Impossible Fallout is number one, of course. I'm not sure which top score we're going to go for here. I'm interested to hear what you were thinking. But it's our dear friend Ethan Hunt, as always, chose to accept a mission. And he saved the world again. And he saved the world in the most visually striking fashion in the history of the Mission Impossible series. So that to me is the thing that will stand out. Like, as a Patriots fan, I've now got 6 Super Bowl titles to look back on. And so,
unbelievable.
No, so it's hard. Sometimes they kind of run together a little bit. And so what you have to do is you think about what is the defining characteristic of that season? And what was the thing that struck you most about that championship? And so that's what we're at. We're at 6 Mission Impossibles and like 4.5 great Mission Impossible films. So at this point, it's like, what is the thing that you remember in each of these movies? Like 4, you remember for just the sheer audacity and ridiculousness of it. Like, that's the thing. You remember the Burj Khalifa climb. Like, that's the thing that you remember. 5, you remember like how tight it was. You remember, damn, that was a really tightly plotted and done movie. This one is just, I think it's the visuals. The Halo jump was one of the coolest things I've ever seen dedicated to film. I think that the fight in the bathroom, like that pure white bathroom with like red blood dripping, like it's just that was the whole series in a scene, was the comedy, the fighting, like everything in one scene. So I think Mission Impossible is great for all of the reasons that all of the Mission Impossible films are great, but this one especially was great because it was just so visually striking.
So you've just given the top score that I was thinking of. I was gonna give it best production design because
Yeah.
the skydive scene is like it's incredible. And then
Yeah, it's just so damn cool.
the bathroom scene is one of my favorite fight scenes ever.
Yep.
And there are so many more, like the catacombs fight.
Yeah.
The armored truck heist is, I think, maybe my favorite stretch of that movie. But the whole car chase, the helicopter chase at the end of the movie, and the climactic like battle scene, like every single set piece in this movie is like jaw-droppingly epic. Like the chase scene when he's like running on the rooftops in London.
I was just gonna
like,
say that when he's running, like when he runs through the funeral, when he's trying to figure out the GPS.
that is a jaw-dropping movie, and I can't wait till I saw it twice in theaters, and I'm very much excited to see it again soon. Like it's been too long since I've seen it. So it wasn't I think The Sisters Brothers is a better film, but I don't remember having a better movie going experience in a long time than seeing Mission Impossible, because I like to love all of these movies except Mission Impossible 2. And for them to up the ante and like make a movie that is so clearly the best in its own series, 6 movies in,
Yeah.
and to wow me like that in a genre that I thought that I had seen a lot of, is really a feat. And I think back on 2018 and like the summer specifically, I'm gonna remember this movie. So I would recommend this movie to everybody. Everyone should see this.
Everybody. This is why movies get made. This is why we watch movies. This exact film.
So that is my top score list.
Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna just give you a couple. I've got 3 that you didn't mention. Or you did mention one. So Soldado. So I think Soldado deserves to be seriously considered for this list. I think people were massively disappointed by Soldado because Sicario was one of the best, most perfectly plotted action movies that's maybe ever been made. It was perfect. That was whatever it was, 100 minutes of perfection.
Yep.
And Soldado was not, but it was a lot of incredible stuff. It was very thoughtful about what one of the most important topics in today's America, which is like the relationship between the U.S. and the countries to the South. And it like really thought about those relationships in a way that I don't think the first one did all the time, because I think the first one was a little bit more about the people. The second one was a little bit more about the politics, which is frankly, I just think that's a tougher target to hit, especially when you're making a movie that's so adrenaline fueled and yet so thoughtful, which I think naturally means you're sort of simultaneously appealing to 2 very different political groups, and to try to pull that off is really tough. Like, I think especially when you're picking a political topic that's not so easy to boil down into something that everybody can agree with. For example, it's Taylor Sheridan, right? Is the writer of this?
Yeah.
So when he did Wind River, he takes the question of the treatment of Native Americans in the United States, and he basically deals with it in a way that everybody across the political spectrum can agree with. It's much harder to do that with Soldado, and so I think that's a big part of why people didn't love this as much as they should have. I think this was a great movie. It was insanely thrilling. I thought that it had a couple of great set pieces. I thought Benicio del Toro was magnificent as usual, but I thought that the real standout for this, if I were giving an award, would be Best Supporting Actress. The little girl who plays the rich young Mexican girl who gets kidnapped was out of this world. So I thought this movie was fantastic and just suffered a little bit from comparison.
I think that's where we're at. I think, or that's where I'm at. If you look at this movie in a vacuum compared to some of the lower ones on my list, like this is definitely a better movie. So
Yeah.
this will make it on the list.
So number 2 is Widows. Widows is a shockingly shut out from the Oscars this year because it's directed by the guy who did 12 Years a Slave, Steve McQueen. It's written by Gillian Flynn, and it stars a bunch of really big movie stars who people really love. So it's kind of shocking that Widows was not nominated for any Oscars. So I think a lot of people might have expected Viola Davis to get a nomination for this movie. I mean, she has a great reputation, and she was top billed in this movie. Like I think she's the natural pick, but I think that would actually have been a mistake because this film has an incredible cast, like incredible. The basic premise of this is that Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, and then the two other actresses whose names I don't think I know, but basically their husbands are all in a gang together, and their husbands all die right at the beginning of the movie while pulling off this job. And Viola Davis, her husband, leaves her instructions basically for how to secure her future if he's gone. And so these women try to pull off this heist because they need to, because the husband was in debt. And so that's like a pretty pulpy premise, but it asks a lot of questions about like what's going on in Chicago specifically, but just kind of what's going on in America's cities and what's going on with women. It's really, I think it looks at race and gender, but especially looks at gender. Like it thinks about what it is to be a woman, and they talk about what people's expectations of them are. So the women get top billing in this movie, and they're fantastic, all of them. The beating heart of this movie is Daniel Kaluuya and Brian Tyree Henry. Brian Tyree Henry had the best year of basically anybody in movies. He was in everything and was incredible in everything. The best part of this movie is Daniel Kaluuya. So Brian Tyree Henry and Daniel Kaluuya play. Brian Tyree Henry is is a local politician who I think is running for mayor, or maybe he's just running for like alderman or something, some local Chicago political position. And Daniel Kaluuya is his brother, who is crooked. And oh my god, he is one of the best scenes I've maybe ever seen in a movie. Just the way it's shot, he is intimidating this guy and is about to kill him, and you can tell he's about to kill him. And the way that they circle around him as he's got this guy is just like nothing I've ever seen in a movie. So I would be awarding this Best Supporting Actor to Daniel Kaluuya. This is a movie everybody should see. It's not gonna be what you expect it to be based on how I've described it, but it's really worth seeing. So that's one that I think also belongs. Last one, briefly, Bad Times at the El Royale. That was a terrific movie. It was clearly a Tarantino ripoff, but it was a good one. Really well plotted. And now I got to figure out this woman's name, because the woman in Bad Times at the El Royale was also in Widows and was really good.
Okay.
But this was good. I like this movie. Her name is Cynthia Erivo.
Okay.
Yeah, she was really good in both of those movies. But Bad Times at the El Royale, if you like Quentin Tarantino, go see this one.
I remember seeing the trailer and just thinking like, wow, I can't wait to see that. And I'm definitely going back for that one.
Yeah, it's really worth it. Way too long, but good. All right, so I think I'm going to argue for Soldado and Widows to be on this list. I would argue probably for Soldado to be a little bit higher. So maybe my inclination would be that maybe those last two are the ones to pull off.
I think those two go. They were both kind of not run of the mill, but like pretty standard horror films that I had positive viewing experiences with. But
yeah,
they could ultimately let's not lose sight of the fact that Jamie Lee Curtis was great, even though we didn't see her boobs.
No, we don't have to lose sight of that at all. So I would argue Soldado maybe like in the 5 to 7 range, and Widows like 8 to 10, somewhere in there. So I'd leave slotting up to you.
I don't think we could put either higher than mid 90s. I think like they would have to come after mid 90s.
Okay.
Which would be 7. So what do you think about? I think Soldado is probably a better movie than Unsane.
Yeah. So let's go.
Game Night.
Yeah, let's go. Soldado 7, Unsane 8, Widows 9, Game Night 10.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
All right, Haas. I feel like we may have a list of the 2019-18. I don't know how to name this. Topscars.
It seems like that is what we have done here. So I think I'll rattle off the 10 that we agreed to, and then we'll get out of here and watch some more movies.
Yeah, I've got a lot of homework from this.
I've got some homework for this, and I need to get caught up on my actual Oscars watching. I'm way behind. So
yeah.
All right, the 2018 Topscars, hosted by Kyle and Mike. Number 10, Game Night. Number 9, Widows. Number 8, Unsane. Number 7, Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. Number 6, Mid-90s. Number 5, The Old Man and the Gun. Number 4, Sorry to Bother You. Number 3, Annihilation. Number 2, The Sisters Brothers. And number 1, Mission Impossible Fallout. Good year for movies.
Damn right. Yeah, this was a weird and quietly good year for movies.
Yeah. I think that like this tier of movies, like the just below Oscar worthy tier, is like, I think this is a stronger class of movies than we talked about last year at this time.
I think you're right. I think that the actual like Oscar contenders this year, there's only a couple that I think I'm gonna remember. Like,
yeah,
I think I'm gonna remember Black Panther, Black Klansman, Roma, and A Star Is Born.
Yeah. And I think like this year, I haven't seen all those, but I agree with you on Black Panther and Black Klansman. I think like last year we had talked about Wind River being a serious contender for an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
And like none of the other ones really. I think the number of these movies should have legitimately been nominated. So a good year for the second tier movies. So hopefully people listening found something good to go back to.
Heard that. They should watch it when they're not watching The Favorite and Green Book.
Yes, definitely not. All right. Don't forget, Kevin MacLeod put together our theme and not top 3 music. And, of course, Aaron Sant put together our wonderful artwork.
It's great artwork. And if you want to see any of our stuff on the old internets, I would suggest checking out our Twitter, Top10KM. It's not a great Twitter, but it will be someday. If you want to check out our Instagram, which is a great Instagram, also Top10KM. All these are spelled out TEN. You can email us at top10km@gmail.com. Check out our Facebook group, Top 10 with Kyle and Mike. And if you want to listen to us, as you already are, and you want to check us out on a different app, check us out on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever you get your podcasts. That would be my suggestion.
I think it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think so, my friend.
All right, now let's get on out of here. Thanks, buddy.
Peace.